Oh, and here we go. Another wrestling story for all you wrestling fans out there, and for all you people who want to know what my life was in pro wrestling. Let's run the intro and let's talk about my time with Dory Funk Jr. and training at the Funking Conservatory. Yeah, so welcome to Blackphoenix Entertainment and my pro wrestling stories. If you've been following along the story, you know, in episode 2, I talked about a little adventure I had in 2001 on the independent wrestling scene, going down to the Funking Conservatory down in Ocala, Florida, to train with the legendary Dory Funk Jr. So this was still in the timeline, like I said before. ICW was running in this iteration from 2000 to 2002, so this was right smack dab in the middle of our backyard run. And just to kind of go back to the previous video, I found this ad in a Pro Wrestling Illustrated magazine. Dory Funk Jr. had the ad. My buddy Paul looked at it, he said, "Hey dude, you got to go do this," and that was that. So now I'm trying to remember 20 something years ago, so you'll have to forgive me, but I was still 17 at the time, so I had to wait, 1, until I turned 18, and 2, I had the funds to go down there. So I found that ad in the summer, early summer, because my birthday's in August. Whatever, did what we needed to do, drained that college fund, and got plane tickets for the fight camp, which is what he called it back then. And yeah, you had to have an open spot in fight camp too, so that was part of it. So, had an open spot in March of 2001. If you are an avid pro wrestling fan, number 1, 2001 was a huge year for wrestling. Number 2, March should be an extremely important month in that year of pro wrestling. And I'm going to get into some of that, because, man, that was a crazy time. So yeah, I talked back and forth with Dory and Marty Funk. Marty is Dory's wife. She also helps him run the school. Parents were involved, obviously, because I was still young. And yeah, got tickets, flew down there. Man, this video is going to be long. By the way, there is a lot to cover in this, so I appreciate all of you guys who are sticking around. So, got to the airport. We actually picked up another kid, or guy, or whatever. I actually forget how old he was. I think he was young. And we were going to ride from the airport to, hotels or whatever. We ended up going in the wrong direction and didn't get to the hotels in time. I think we were 7 miles out of where we were supposed to be. So yeah, I felt bad for that kid, and it just sucked. So reason being why that sucked, and it's hazy. Like, I'm trying to remember certain things. I don't think we directly went to the hotel. We went directly to an arena. Now, this is where this comes in. This is my very first, within the first 6 hours of me being down in Florida. Yeah, so WCW was still a thing in March of 2001. All the students of that class, we got invited to go to the second to last Nitro and the very last Thunder taping. We were there at the end. I was literally backstage at the crumbling, bare bones at the end shows of WCW. And I met a lot of the guys. That was fun. And it's funny because that was also my first, not pro wrestling live event, but like large scale pro wrestling event on, of that magnitude. Not that WCW was big by any means, not that there was a ton of people there, but like the production wise and all of that. So that part was interesting to see. So we were in the crowd for a little bit, and then we went backstage, shook hands. I remember specifically shaking hands with Easy Money, who was also Jason Jett of ECW, and Kid Cash was there. I shook hands with him. He was a cool dude. There was a couple other like random dudes. This was like when ECW was already defunct at that point, so some guys were just kind of floating around and collecting paychecks and stuff. One guy I saw, and I wish I shook his hand and went up to him, but we just didn't have time, was Mike Awesome. If you remember him, he was a former ECW World Heavyweight Champion. And the funny part is, on TV, these guys look like monsters. And, you know, they have lifts in their boots and all that stuff. Mike Awesome, big jack dude. He was jacked, muscly. He was not 6'6". I can tell you right now. There is no way that dude was 6'6" if I'm only 5'10". But, you know, I mean, it is what it is. It's the wrestling business. Yeah, so you also have to understand, you've got this kid just thrown into professional wrestling. I had nothing. I wrestled in my backyard attire, basically, my shorts and my t-shirts there. I didn't have pads, I didn't have any of that stuff. We actually bought wrestling shoes down there and pads down there. So, like, the first time we hopped in the ring to train, they're like, I don't know who pointed it out, but they're like, yeah, he's got no pads on. And I'm like, I'm hardcore. They're like, no, you need pads. I'm like, all right, fine, let's buy pads. Let's do the whole pad thing. And the training was fun. It was every day training. Like, you would train in the gym, train in the ring, and then at the end of the kind of like the day, you would do matches. You just, you know, they would tape them, we would do matches, go over them, and stuff like that. So it was an intense week of that. Because if you're not used to that, normally, and this is just me, some other guys may be different, I don't or have never worked out, like weightlifted or anything like that, on days that I have matches. That's just the way that I am, just, you know, kind of save the body a little bit. You stretch out, you do light stuff, but you don't do like weight training or anything like that. Nope, that's not that's not what we were doing here. Yeah, so we went over basic stuff, and Dory actually, he back then, again, this is 20-something years ago, he got in the ring, he did stuff with us, we did arm drags, body slams, you know, all the basic stuff that you would do, and run through the matches. You know, he would just be like, hey, you and you, just go and do stuff, things like that. And that was just basically them scouting at that point, just kind of seeing, all right, who's got what, who can do, you know, whatever. Some interesting notes on who was part of that class. If you're familiar, again, with wrestling, Paul London and Chris Sabin. Paul London left, I think he tried to do a double camp, and something happened, so he ended up leaving our camp early for whatever reason. But Chris, I actually roomed with Chris Sabin the whole week. Yeah, me and him were roommates, and we wrestled a singles match together on TV. I'm going to get into that later on, too. Now, I'm not going to bore people with all the details of all the stuff going on. You know, we did some drills, whatever. I was pulled aside by Dory a couple times. He asked me some questions, because I was, back then, pretty flexible, pretty, I don't know. I don't want to say like gymnastically, because that's not a word, but like I could do flips, I could do stuff. So that really caught his eye, and I already had like, what do you call it? Like a knack for it, like a knack for the business. You know what I mean? And so he saw that, and took me aside a couple times. We talked. You know, we ran through promos, we did some stuff. That was a lot of fun, and there were some really helpful guys there too that really they kind of helped me out, took me aside, and would just go over stuff. Alright, so I gotta clarify something. When we did just the mock matches and training, yes, it was taped, but that was it. There was no crowd, there was no nothing. It was just us in training, you know, doing whatever. At the end of the week, I think it was a Friday night, he would run his, Dory would run his weekly shows. So yeah, he would get a paying crowd in, and they would go on local TV. They would, a local Fox TV ran his show. So whatever matches that we ran would end up on TV. So yeah, my very first independent wrestling match was on TV against Chris Sabin. That is crazy, and that is my claim to fame. I'm gonna take that. There are guys who go out there and they're like, oh, I did a dark match on Raw, I did this, and that's literally all they ever did, and they're just still like wrestling in bingo halls and stuff. I wrestled Chris Sabin. That's my bingo hall story. So there was an interesting setup to that. So I was part of a battle royal, and I had that one-on-one hardcore match with Chris Sabin. And that was one of the things Dory talked to me about. He's like, I need a hardcore match on the card. Do you want to do it? I'm like, absolutely. I'm literally your dude. So he was all for that. The Battle Royal was cool. And it's not just, I know wrestlers will elaborate stories and say things and all that stuff. This random 18-year-old kid, me, he put in the final four of this Battle Royal. He didn't have to do that. He did that for a reason. He wanted to see kind of, you know, what I was up to, what I was all about, stuff like that. That was really cool. Then later on, you know, I wrestled Chris Sabin, and man, I don't know if I could do a week like that again. All like training, wrestling matches, you know, 2 matches on one show on TV. That's intense stuff. I have not a bad thing to say about Chris Sabin. He was an awesome dude. He was just starting out. I mean, we roomed together, never had a problem. Going over the match and doing what we were going to do, dude, he was totally cool. He came up with this awesome, you know, it was this awesome sequence at the beginning. I came up with some stuff, and it worked. And he took my double underhook rocker dropper. I showed it in a previous video. I'll show it again here.
Kick to the stomach.
He took that, no problem. He's like, dude, what's that move? I done it in training or whatever, and he's like, I'll take that. I'm like, all right, cool. And he did it, you know, said, hey, I want to do this and this, and it turned out awesome for what it was. And I think probably for time, they did not air the entire match on TV. They aired the last half of the match of me getting my ass kicked, which is fine. I got on TV, that works. But you know, and one note of that match too. I don't know how familiar some of you are with the Florida wrestling scene, but there was a British wrestler who came over from England called Adam Windsor. He was Dory's top student at the time. He was actually involved in that match, and he did commentary for the match, you know, dubbed over for the TV show. Again, I have nothing bad to say about him. He was a really cool dude. He helped me out. He took me aside a couple times. He did eventually have a falling out with the Funks, and I've heard stories. They're not mine to tell, but I mean, you know, stuff happens. He has, I don't know when this video is coming out, but in late April, he actually passed away at the age of 41 due to some heart conditions, and that's crazy to me, because again, he's a year older than me, and man, this wrestling business will just... So what I'm going to do, I am going to play that match right now, and I'm going to kind of dub my own commentary over it, just to kind of, you know, pave over some things. And it's on VHS converted, so yeah, some of it's a little sketchy and the audio's not that great, so I think it's better if I just dub over it. We'll run through that, and then we'll talk about it when we come back. Alright, so here we are. Yeah, more than halfway through the match here. They only got the last 4 minutes or so on TV. But, as you can see, that is me in the corner with my arms and legs draped over the ropes. And you got Chris Sabin in the background here. So, I'm going to start the rest of the match and commentate over it and really kind of explain what was going on here. So, here we go. So, Sabin's got a bat, comes up right in the sack, right in the balls. And yeah, that was not fun. He picks me up. Now this spot really should have done something else. He's setting something up, but like I shouldn't have just been like standing there. But then big Death Valley driver onto the cookie sheet. Takes his time, goes for a pin here. Boom, nice kick out by me. That was good. Those of you that get that will get that. Then this I don't remember talking about, but he throws the trash can over my head and then does this cool little kick thing. I have no way to bump that. I kind of knew I was near the ropes, but I wasn't sure, so I'm like, well, let me just kind of fall, like, weird-like, you know, do what I can. And then we couldn't get the barrel off me, because, again, I didn't know what he was doing. Brings me over. Vicious body slam. That was vicious. Throws this over me. Calls for something on the top rope. Nice spring up there. A leg drop misses onto the trash can as I get out of the way and then just collapse in the corner. Now this is interesting. This is Adam Windsor. He comes in. He was the current hardcore champion at the time. He's just, Sabin bumps on something else. That sucks. It sucks when you get hit by something and then bump, expecting to hit Matt, and then just hit something else. But see Adam's just sitting here just beating us with everything. I honestly forget the storyline reason for this. I think it was just to get him out there, and it's a hardcore match, and he was the hardcore champion, so I guess that in itself makes sense. Just taking the shots. Yeah, Fun Noodle. You notice the difference in selling there between me and Chris on the Fun Noodle. Yeah. Just taking the cookie sheet. Honestly, kind of weak for cookie sheet, so I was like, hit me. Finally, on the third one, he hits me. I'm like, I'm not going down until you hit me. You know, he can bend those things. He's got the bat. And yeah, we got like a minute left in the match. So yeah, for like the last minute or couple minutes or so, it's just him. And he's like jabbing me with it. I'm like, this that sucked. I'm like, just hit me with it, please. You know, I'm playing to the crowd, yay, all that fun stuff. Yeah, it was crushing me with it. That's the song. Now he's finally setting up for the final here. This I remember us talking about. Like, this is the end. This is how we know things are, you know. And boom. Nice setup powerbomb. That whole thing went great. Of course, he's got to go get his gimmick. Get his British flag here. Drapes it over Chris. Drags me over because I'm supposed to be out. Tells the ref to count. It's a hardcore match. No rules. Boom. Boy Crazy Carl wins. So then we got and then I'm selling. It's a hardcore match. The ref, you know, just raises my hand. So I'm still sitting there. And this is part of just being new. Like, when you're on TV and doing matches for TV and stuff like that, stuff goes faster. I'm used to just doing, like, house shows and stuff. So you gotta move things along, basically. So luckily Adam was there to do that. Eventually the ref would have said something. And here's something at the end here, giving me the hardcore title. And again, that's something that I mention later on, or I did before this vlog or after this vlog. I don't know. I don't know where I'm putting this in. But there you go. And this is a great shot at the end here. I love that shot. So there you go. There's that. And that's a few things that you already picked up for TV. You know, you gotta play the camera angles, you know, get the last shot, stuff like that. I could have gotten up sooner, you know, after that, but I was still kind of in selling mode and just kind of like adrenaline and things like that. But hey, it worked out. But anyways, let's get back to the vlog. So that was crazy. Also, that was the very first time I used that song. My independent theme, give or take for the most part, was Breathe by Nickelback. It just fit perfect with the gimmick and what I was trying to do. I won in Chris Sabin. Hardcore matches, anything goes, doesn't matter. Won that hardcore title from the Funking Conservatory. Again, this was a test. And I don't know if I've even mentioned it to my parents, but Dory did ask me to stay. They did ask me, like, hey, you've got something here. Would like you to stick around to camp if you can. You know, and just, you know, see what happens, basically. See what you can make of it. I don't know. I was just kind of... I was just kind of like, I don't want to say out of it, but I just wasn't fully realizing what they were offering me at the time. And in hindsight, I definitely should have taken it, but yeah, it just... Life is what it is, life happens, and, you know, live and learn, and you move on. Oh, another fun note about that match, which is, I wish was on TV, and there's probably a reason for it. I asked Dory if I could do a dive, and at first he was like, what do you mean? I'm like, I want to go from the top rope to the outside crossbody. Chris was all about it. He's like, yeah, I'll take it. And Dory was like, give me a little bit and let me think about it. And he came back. He goes, all right. And he came out with like this giant ass mat, like this, like literally like a crash pad type thing. He goes, I'm gonna put it over here. You do your dive from that buckle out. We'll catch it on this camera. And I was like, all right, that works for me. So, I mean, I didn't have a bad experience. No, I was definitely good. I know a lot of that knowledge and stuff that I learned there, the basics from Dory Funk, I took for the rest of my career. Like, some of that stuff I still go over, some of the spots and just simple things that he taught us, it stuck with me. Alright, so I know this question is going to get asked because I roomed with him and wrestled him. No, I did not stay in contact with Chris Sabin. It just, we parted ways there, and that was it. So, no idea how to contact him, but he did super cool things in the wrestling business. Big name, Impact, TNA Wrestling, NWA TNA. So I think he ended up being a world champion at some point. So I mean, good for him. He was, like I said, back when I knew him, when we roomed together, he was a good dude. So that's really it. Without really going into hours and hours of detail of everything that happened down there, that's pretty much sums it up. And came back from Florida. Trained the guys in ICW. We ended up going over drills and stuff like that. And that was kind of a game changer for the last half of what ICW was. In my next video, pro wrestling video, I'm going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about us kind of expanding out, how we swallowed up other couple companies, how we did some joint shows with another company, EWA. I believe I mentioned that in the last video. And yeah, then after that, I really get into the independent scene. So I thank you all for sticking with this video. I know some of these pro wrestling stories are long, but there's a lot to it. And again, if you're a fan of pro wrestling, then hell, you're gonna watch the whole thing anyways. But go down there, do the fun YouTube stuff, subscribe. If you're not a subscriber, if you're just viewing this, you should subscribe because then you'll get notified of all the cool videos I put out. And go down and check out all the other cool stuff that I'm doing. I got some discount codes there for Blackphoenix merchandise and for Lunafide. You can save some money on some cool stuff. And I got my Discord server going there. I'll totally add a pro wrestling chat if enough people join up and want to talk pro wrestling and things like that. I no problem doing that. We can game. We can just chat about random stuff. That's what we do. So, with all that being said, I appreciate my flock. I appreciate you rocking with the flock. And I will see you guys on the next video.